extraordinary feat of engineering in history. And one of the most iconic man-made structures on the planet. The Great Wall of China.
It's the ultimate wonder of the world. This took more time, more people, more material than any other building.
But why did the Chinese go to such staggering lengths to build it?
This wall is the result of blood, sweat, and fears.
And what are the secrets that have enabled it to survive for over 2,000 years? Now, groundbreaking science is rewriting its complex history, decoding its mysteries, to reveal there's much more to the Great Wall than just bricks and mortar.
It's simple and yet sophisticated. It's a wonderful design.
It's defied mountain ranges, time, and all-out war. Today, cutting-edge chemistry discovers that the secret to its remarkable strength is a simple ingredient that can be found in every kitchen. And a new survey determines its length is truly extraordinary. As we finally solve the enigma at the heart of the world's greatest megastructure. Many centuries ago, in the days before the Great Wall, bands of horsemen began to gather in the lands to the north of China. They united to become a deadly cavalry force and would battle with China for millennia in a bloody conflict. The raiders were fast-hitting, skillful warriors who left devastation in their wake. The Chinese responded with a series of defenses that would eventually grow to become the greatest structure ever created. They stretched from the ocean, using sun-baked mud to master the most arid deserts, stone to forge rivers, and bricks to conquer mountains.
The wall is a tremendous piece of hardware because unlike the pyramids or the Colosseum or the Taj Mahal, this is not just history, it's part of the world's geography. It's so immense.
The Great Wall is a must-see sight for millions of visitors every year. A globally recognized symbol of China's strength and independence. And a place where everyone who's anyone just has to be seen.
This wall I am sitting on here is the only individual building that appears on world maps and globes. This has a scale of its own.
Few people know the wall as well as William Lindsay. In 1987, he walked its entire length, the first Westerner to do so for decades.
Those were the days when you were in central Beijing and hundreds of people would gather around you because most of them had never seen a live foreigner before. They were astounded at my height, 6'3". I must have just looked like a man from Mars. For me, it translated initially into a journey of 78 days when China was tentatively opening its doors to the outside world.
In China, the wall is known as Wang Li Changchun. Literally, that's the 10,000 Li Wall. That's about 5,000 kilometers.
Wan Li Changcheng is the Chinese term for this. It doesn't translate as Great Wall of China. It is more meaningful. If you really want to be on the mark, what we're standing on in Chinese is the endless wall.
The Great Wall is so vast, nobody has ever managed to measure its true length, until now.
大家都是停留在各自的理解上，有的人认为长城只有2000多公里，最多的有的人认为长城有5万多公里。
Now the Chinese have set out to solve the mystery, once and for all. "150 kilometers northeast of Beijing, at Jinshanling, technicians prepare to use helicopter drones, carrying sophisticated pods. They can map every detail with great clarity.
非常先进技术，然后这一整套技术是我们公司的航空测绘，一般还有就是建这种3维模型。
我们完全是用一个航线来规划的。
This control panel, which has a map with GPS points, allows him to pinpoint the locations and direct the helicopter to those locations. The pod has 5 cameras, so as it's flying, it will precisely calculate the height of the wall, the height of the towers, the relief of the surrounding terrains. Basically, it's producing a 3D view of the wall. 是不是都是自动的？
对。
对。
Basically, a survey lasts for about 40 minutes, and within that survey, you're looking at about 4 kilometers of wall. And I guess he'll be quite occupied in the next few years. This is a long wall.
This pioneering technology is helping to revolutionize our understanding of the wall. And provide invaluable information for conservation work.
就是我们这新技术可以在最短的时间内，然后测量出它的长度或者高度、体积，然后测量出它的放量。
This research is just a pilot stage of a much larger operation. Back in 2006, China's official Cultural Heritage Academy started a definitive nationwide survey, deploying a battery of high technology, including aerial photography, satellite images, and laser scanning. Thousands of kilometers into the western deserts, teams spread out over a vast area.
This is the first time cartographers have gone out with archaeologists looking for every trace of the wall.
In 2010, archaeologists came to Jinta County and found previously undiscovered sections of the wall. Over 2,000 years old. They've survived, even though they're built of little more than sun-baked mud. The discovery of these ancient mud walls, along with the more famous brick ones, give a clue to the survey's first big revelation. There's not just one wall, but many.
It should be the Great Walls of China, and there are at least 16.
The survey shows it took over 2,400 years for the 16 walls to evolve, built by successive emperors and dynasties in response to changing threats. Using different materials and with a great variety of striking features. The earliest walls were scattered and short. while others sat far to the north and were then abandoned. Long sections of the walls overlapped or adapted to the terrain. And not only did they discover new walls, but also undocumented structures. Nearly 44,000, including forts and towers. The western end is deep in the Gobi Desert. It spans China and climbs the mountains north of Beijing, before plunging into the ocean of the Dragon's Head, and extends as far east as the North Korean border. But the biggest shock came when all the survey data was finally put together.
我们惊喜地发现了中国境内竟然有长达21000多公里的长城，它几乎占了赤道长度的一半。
21,000 kilometers is 3 times longer than traditionally believed. It's further than the distance from the North Pole to the South Pole.
This wall is so long that when it was being operated 400 years ago, guards in towers at the east end of the wall would witness the sunrise 1 hour and 20 minutes before guards at the western end of the same wall would witness the same event.
The next challenge is to discover the forces that first drove the wall's creation and break the codes of its secret communication system. Visitors to China are familiar with the famous brick wall. It's one of the world's most iconic structures. But it started as sun-baked mud and foliage. Terrifying forces drove its creation, and explain why and how the Great Wall was first built. We have to go back over 2,200 years and deep into the wilderness to find parts of the longest wall built to defend ancient China. Only fragments remain. This was once one of the most disputed parts of Asia. The battleground for fearsome raiders, known as the deadly Xiongnu.
Xiongnu were famed as horse archers, a brutal raiding force of hard-riding men who struck terror into the hearts of the enemy.
The Xiongnu left a trail of destruction in their wake. To pursue or engage them often led to disaster.
Horse archers were the ideal troops for harassing attacks. They could come as if from nowhere, appearing suddenly. It was true terror tactics.
The Xiongnu were only few in number, but with their superb mastery of the horse and deadly composite bow, they revolutionized warfare and forced the great Chinese Empire to adopt a radical new strategy.
They decided to build a wall, a complex linear fortress.
Nomads from the north posed a realistic military threat. Every emperor soon learned that the length of his job would depend on managing the frontier well.
But over 2 millennia ago, how did they make a wall in a desert?
This is a replica of the rammed earth wall. It's at once wonderfully simple and yet wonderfully sophisticated. Look at this frame, for instance, this triangular frame. This does two things. The top of the frame allows you perfect alignment to get that wall running exactly where you want it across the landscape. But it also gives standardization to the shape of the wall. I also use these reeds, so bundles of reeds that were layered in between the rammed earth.
Pounding in the reeds binds the earth together, making a tough, solid wall.
It's simple and yet sophisticated. It's a wonderful design.
And this reconstructed section is only a third of the size of the original walls. They changed the landscape, standing 6 meters tall. These defenses focused on blocking strategic weak points, vulnerable passes and valleys. These sections of fortifications spanned ancient China, stretching for 10,000 kilometers. But this wasn't just a simple barrier. It was an entire protection and communications network, expertly designed to resist attack.
One of the many defense systems is this perimeter forest of porcupine spikes. Look how unpleasant they are. You'd have to send very brave men in.
Attacking troops would have to clear the spikes in order to climb and breach the wall.
But while they're being cleared, men up there are shooting down at you.
When they weren't defending the wall itself, the troops would live in garrison forts like this. Now ruins, they once housed 1,000 Chinese cavalry, ready to battle the Xiongnu. But today, many scholars challenge the traditional Chinese view that the wall was purely for defense.
因为我们今天看到的史料都是汉文的史料，所以看似是以一个攻击者的、侵略者的汉朝人，也是通过长城作为踏板进入到匈奴的领地，也曾经侵犯过匈奴人的利益。
Until recently, we knew almost nothing of the lives of the men who policed this frontier. Then, over the past century, archaeologists started to make some stunning discoveries. Tiny wooden strips, engraved with text. The Juyan slips.
尘封了2000多年的军事机密，今天能够公之于众，对历史学界、对考古学界、对我们的社会都是非常有意义的。
The ancient Chinese used wood and bamboo as paper.
我们今天能看见的简牍上的内容非常的丰富，有军事的内容，有文书的内容，有生活的内容，有医学的内容。
These unique fragments allow us to read minds from 2,000 years ago. Letters home.
I am patrolling the wall, and life at the border is hard. Please write often to me.
Medical cures.
To treat a cold, mix wild ginger with cinnamon and monkshood.
But the slips don't just tell us about the personal life of those on the frontier. They also decode one of the wall's best-kept secrets. The operation of a complex signaling system. These stumps in the desert used to be beacon towers. They ran deep into Xiongnu territory and were used to send coded signals back to the troops on the Great Wall.
They extended at 90 degrees to the wall. They came out from the wall and they extended for perhaps 400 kilometers. That's something like the distance between London and Newcastle, a tremendous distance out into the desert. They would send signals back to the garrison, telling them the Xiongnu are on the move, there's this many. And their signaling devices were quite ingenious. They had this feng, this lantern-shaped object which they could run up the pole. They had biao, flags, which in various combinations of numbers they could run up the pole.
But is it possible to work out exactly how the signals were used here 2,000 years ago?
So there's the original beacon tower, and we've set our beacon signal along the horizon to the left of that. Now, something's happening. I can see movement. It's a feng. They're putting up one of those lantern-shaped symbols.
If you see 50 Xiongnu, raise a feng.
Something's happening again, and I can see that this is going to be the flags, the baoi.
If you see 200 Xiongnu, raise 3 flags.
The signals summoned help from the forts to stop attacks. And they got larger as the threat escalated. The towers all had a massive bonfire ready to light.
Those reeds start to go quite quickly.
If you see 1,000 Xiongnu, light the bonfire.
The warning of 1,000 attackers would quickly be passed along the towers to the forts. But it left the men on the beacon towers alone to face the advancing Xiongnu.
Listening to the roar and crackle of this fire behind me, I could just imagine the dread that must have gone through 4 or 5 men in a beacon tower when they had to light one of these. But the signaling system worked.
The Chinese defense system kept the Xiongnu at bay, evolving and adapting over time. But 1,000 years later, in the early 1200s, the raiders reappeared. Only now there were many more, and they were united under a great warlord, Genghis Khan and the Mongols. In 1209, they attacked on several fronts, going around the Great Wall and bursting through it. They conquered all China, setting up their own ruling dynasty.
The Chinese suffered the yoke of Mongol rule under Genghis Khan and his successors for more than a century. And it was a brutal war.
Defeat at the hands of the Mongols left deep scars. But after decades of subjugation, in 1368, the Chinese Ming dynasty overthrew the Mongols and established one of the richest dynasties in China's history. The Ming emperors were determined that China would never again be conquered. They vowed to turn it into an impregnable fortress. They demanded the ultimate wall, built not from mud, but from bricks. And they would gamble everything on it, including the future of all China. In the 16th century, China's Ming dynasty began to construct the Great Wall, familiar today. A vast brick edifice. The workforce included soldiers, but also forced labor, convicts and debtors. The construction cost the lives of countless people. Altogether, the Ming walls took around 100 years to build, stretched over 8,800 kilometers, and used billions of bricks. But extraordinary new scientific research has shown the secret of its success isn't only in the bricks. It's hidden in the mortar. Decoding it starts with an ancient Chinese legend.
The mortar is very special, very bright white, and in fact some of the earliest walkers on the wall asked local Chinese, why is it so white? And the locals said, oh, that's because the bones of the deceased builders was ground up.
Many Chinese people grew up with the popular legend of Lady Meng Jianyu, whose husband died building the wall.
今夕何夕？夕见舟中。今日何日兮？
The legend says that when she made the walls collapse, they revealed human bone.
From that time on, it's believed that the name of the wall in Chinese, Wan Li Chang Cheng, became a death knell, a place of no return.
To many, the wall meant death.
无自苟持，心即凡而不惧，人兮得之忘自。
The Ming walls have withstood attacks and earthquakes for centuries. But if they're not really held together by skeletons, what makes it so effective?
这么斜的这个面，但是这里还是保持这么好，说明这个灰浆非常的好。
Bing Zhenjiang is a chemistry professor, pioneering the study of ancient building materials.
再取点其他的。
He's come with his postgraduate students to collect samples of the 400-year-old Ming mortar. In order to help restore and preserve the walls, he wants to discover its precise chemical composition.
很多目前正在大量的原来前10多年还用水泥在修长城，修复它，就给它带来很多的弊端。我们能够用原来的材料来修复长城。
The main ingredient of the ancient mortar is lime. The challenge is to find the extra magic ingredient that made it so resilient. Once the ancient mortar sample is pulverized, it's mixed with water and then heated. Adding iodine shows the mortar contains starch, organic substance. And further tests reveal the Ming derived this vital ingredient from a most surprising source.
刚才板场玉长城灰浆的样本的结果出来了，可以看出它是呈棕红色，说明它含有糯米成分。
The magic ingredient is sticky rice. The walls have been kept standing not by human bones, but by something that can be found in most kitchens. Pictures from a scanning electron microscope show how the rice binds the mortar. It has to contain exactly 3% rice to be most effective. Rigorous tests show it's highly shake resistant and stronger than modern mortar.
我们认为糯米灰浆是中国古代的一项重要发明。糯米的加入使得灰浆的强度等等性能都大大的改善。这种糯米灰浆确实能够使得中国长城1000年不倒。
But however ingenious the mortar is, it's nothing without bricks. Ming bricks are very big and allow unskilled workers to create vast walls quickly and to a uniform design. 7.5 meters tall and 9 meters wide. They're also uniquely stamped with their manufacturing details to ensure quality control. And they're still a useful source of evidence.
This particular one is telling us the year in which the brick was made. Wan Li is the name of the emperor. Qinian is the 7th year of his reign. So 1578, this brick was made.
But these epic fortifications required an almost endless supply of bricks. Creating them started a mass production revolution that would change China forever. And here in the remote village of Banchongyu, the legacy of that revolution can still be found. The 16th century Ming walls rise from the mountain peaks. The work of building the wall drew thousands of workers and their families here. And today their descendants still live in the shadow of the wall. People like Go Huashu.
这事儿就是我小时候呀，我听我奶奶说，我们是修长城的后裔。
Mr. Xu believes that his ancestors moved from southern China around 450 years ago to build the original Ming walls.
我们到那代的是25代，是跟戚继光修长城过来的。
Mr. Xu has also made an amazing discovery in the village. Over 200 original Ming kilns, a clear indication of the vast scale of the manufacturing operation that went on here. Today he continues his ancestors' work.
咱把这块，这都清了，把那都给它砍了。
And is in charge of restoring a section of the Ming Wall for the Chinese government. He's even built a working Ming kiln to learn more about the techniques of his forefathers.
这个砖窑是一共是3米高，4米半，4米半深。
All they needed to make bricks was sandy soil and water, packed into a uniform frame. Once shaped, they're left to dry. Ming bricks are big, about 4 times the size of modern house bricks, weighing in at a hefty 10.5 kilograms.
漏着撞死了。好，老板呐，哎，把砖摆上后，都封好以后，我们是点窑，一般是烧3天3宿。
Before the kiln is lit, a small blessing to Mr. Xu's wall-building ancestors seems appropriate. The fire quickly spreads beneath the bricks. The smoke shows it's taking hold. The kiln has to reach 1,000 degrees centigrade to make the bricks rock hard. It's a scene reminiscent of over 400 years ago, when the Ming Wall was first built.
I think if we were back in the 1570s here, we would see all around us an enormous amount of industrial scale activity. There's a lot of smoke, there's a lot of pollution. It was a massive effort. You can definitely say this was a military industrial operation.
The Ming Empire mobilized millions to create their vast edifice. A line of defense, a base for attack, and the longest cemetery on Earth. Professor Jiang has brought his new sticky rice mortar, so Mr. Xu can discover if it helps restoration work using original Ming bricks.
来，补修那个过的古建呐，哪个坏了，哪个弄，这个弄比较适应，也比较合适，比较好使。
Both history and chemistry suggest the sticky rice mortar will again hold the wall together for centuries. The Ming dynasty's capacity to produce an endless supply of bricks and magic mortar helped to create the strongest and longest brick wall in history. But did the Great Wall ultimately succeed in fulfilling its purpose, defending China? Or did it fail? The big question remaining about the Ming Great Wall is whether it's a military marvel that held back invasion from the north, or a grand and costly folly that ultimately failed to protect China. The Ming Wall stretched from its mighty desert stronghold across the savannah and up mountains, around the Ming capital, Beijing, before reaching the Dragon's Head, a barrier against the terrifying threat from the north, the Mongols.
This wall is the result of blood, sweat, and fears, and this was built to stop the Mongols invading again.
The Ming walls look impregnable, with strong brick battlements and the finest military engineering. Attacking armies faced cannon fire, showers of arrows from the high towers, and strong battlements, peppered with mysterious holes.
See this aperture here? It's made for a rock bomb. One of these. This is actually an original rock bomb. This is for throwing. But they were bigger ones that were dropped down here. And about every 4 paces along the wall, you see these bomb doors. They're shaped the same curve as the bomb. So when you drop it through, it holds it steady. You do not want it tumbling over like that. But it's falling straight down like this. So it will hit the ground, bottom first, and detonate it. Because in here, it is packed with gunpowder. Other, much larger ones were landmines, which were linked with tripwires. So as horses and men went over the tripwires, they would operate a system that would set these off. And together with the gunpowder, they would pack in noxious chemicals, chemicals that would burn the eyes, chemicals that would burn the skin. Men at the bottom on horses would be terrified and kept away from this wall.
If any attackers did scale the walls, the Ming troops could barricade themselves into these sturdy watchtowers. There are 1,200 in all.
This great hole in the roof is not dereliction. This is where there would have been a ladder leading from the ground floor to the top story, where 3 or 4 men on active duty during the night would be stationed.
But Genghis Khan, the arch-enemy of the Chinese, had foreseen the wall's greatest weakness.
It was manned. And in the early 1600s, we have a figure that tots up to just over 750,000 soldiers. We're looking at about 115 per kilometre.
750,000 troops is a vast host, a huge drain on national resources.
The wall is a tremendous piece of hardware. It's a fortification. But the performance of the Great Wall, just like a shield, depended on who was holding the shield.
By the 1600s, the Ming defenders faced a double threat. The Mongols had new allies. They'd united with warlords from the east, from Manchúria, the Manchu, and were determined to conquer China. From the 1630s, thousands of Manchu troops assaulted the walls. With the wall in danger of falling, the Ming defenders desperately needed reinforcements, and quickly. And the wall's ingenious and effective design allowed it to double up as a highway. The simplest test of its practicality is a Great Wall race. The red team, Chinese Ming defenders along the wall, and the blue, Manchu invaders across rough country.
Go, 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 go!
In the 16th century, when the brick wall was first operational, all the vegetation was removed from the sloping terrain to give the defenders a clear field of fire and to leave the ground a slippery scree.
Oh, the blues are struggling. They're struggling up that slippery slope.
If the Ming reinforcements don't arrive first, the Manchu attackers will be able to reinforce their breach and control more of the wall. Who got there first could be decisive for holding the wall.
Well done, the winners! Yeah, Nabian. Hung Hao. Good. Well done, the red team. I wonder where the blues. Are the blues coming? Quaiter! Quaiter! They're coming gamely up that last hill, puffing and panting. Here they come.
The attackers are about a minute behind.
Well, that's not a huge difference, but it is a difference. Just between two towers, this wall is a useful way of getting men from one tower to another.
For a few decades, the Grand Brick Wall did hold back the Manchu. It would take something extraordinary to breach it. When it finally came, it came from within. In the 17th century, China was in turmoil. The wall had cost more than could be afforded. Then, famine and plague hit. The people starved, as the Ming Emperor and his lords did little. In 1644, the Chinese people rose up and took Beijing. The emperor committed suicide, and the country was engulfed in civil war. The Manchu army beyond the Great Wall took advantage of the chaos and attacked in force. The Chinese rebels inside China advanced eastwards, while the Manchu marched west, to where the Ming armies loyal to the dead emperor held the walls.
长城的力量源于其守卫者的勇气。
The Ming general now faced a terrible dilemma: unite his forces with the Chinese rebels he despised, or make common cause with the Manchu invaders against his own people. He held the fate of China in his hands and opened the wall's gates to the Manchu. In its decisive moment, the wall had remained undefeated, but its open gates rendered it useless. The Manchu now ruled all China. Over the coming decades, they greatly expanded China's borders to the north and west. The walls were no longer a frontier. Unmanned and abandoned, they were left to crumble slowly. The walls were forgotten for nearly 300 years, until the Chinese manned them again in the 1930s, now to hold back the invading Japanese. But defending the wall in an age of total war was largely symbolic.
China was looted and shelled and put to the torch.
After the war, newly communist China stood apart from the rest of the world. The Great Wall represented this isolation. But that began to change in 1972, when US President Richard Nixon made a momentous trip to re-establish relations with the People's Republic of China.
The president sees one symbol of the gulf to be bridged. It is a symbol not only of China's ancient independence, but also of her ancient isolation.
Nixon's visit was the start of the transformation in China's relationship with the world. Once again, the wall symbolized Chinese strength, innovation, and endurance. Sadly, one modern myth simply isn't true.
Recent interviews of astronauts who've flown missions on the International Space Station prove that it's impossible to see it from outer space, halfway to the moon or from the moon.
Today, the Great Wall remains a marvel, whose ancient secrets are only now being fully understood.
The future of the Great Wall is absolutely in the hands of ordinary Chinese people. This is an immense outdoor museum. People go there and they appreciate its value. The prospects are looking good for a better Great Wall in the 21st century.